You want to start?
Yeah.
He came in here and he stared at you for a minute. He looked angry.
The old guy.
He's old.
We'll call this meeting to order. This is a regular city council meeting of the Williston City Council. It is Tuesday, August the 17th at 6 p.m. Melissa, if you will call the roll for us, I would appreciate it.
Councilmember Ross. Councilmember Hines. Here. Mayor Jerry Robinson.
Here.
Council President Deborah Jones.
Here.
Vice President Marguerite Robinson.
Here.
Councilmember Cox.
Here.
City Manager Jackie Gorman. Here. City Attorney Scott Walker.
Here.
City Clerk Patricia Wright. Absent. Human Resources Director Melissa Thompson filling in. All other staff.
Here.
Here.
Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it. And tonight, letters, thank you for that, Linda. Let's see. At this time, we'll stand for the opening prayer and pledge of allegiance by the mayor.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for allowing us to meet here tonight, Lord. We come to you with heavy hearts. We pray that you would use your healing hands in this community and heal those who have gone down with this COVID, Lord. We pray that you would just heal them, and those who have lost loved ones from it, we pray that you would just mend their broken hearts, Lord. We pray that you would just be with our first responders, protect them as they go about their business, Lord, for the protection of this city. And we pray that you be with our military men and women, wherever they may be, protect and provide for them and bring them back home safely. Be with this council tonight, lead, guide, and direct them that they would make the right decisions for the city. For this in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item number 1 on our agenda is the additions, deletions, changes, and or approval of the agenda. Do you have any changes, deletions, or revisions? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I move that we approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. At this time, item number 2 is the first opportunity for the public to speak to the council on any subject that is not currently on the agenda. If you have anything that you would like to add at this time, would you please join us at the podium?
Anyone online like to speak, speak up.
Okay, there is another opportunity at the end if you should change your mind. Okay, item number 3 is the consent agenda, which consists of the council meeting minutes of August the 3rd. Comment or motion for approval of the consent agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda from August 3rd.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 4 is old business, and the first item of business is the staff, board, and council updates, and we will start with the city manager, Ms. Gorman.
Hey, good evening, council. Not a lot going on, but I received an email from Charles Harris. He's with the Central Florida Community Action Agency group. Good afternoon. Each year, Central Florida Community Action recognizes individuals and organizations that have made a significant impact in their community by uplifting and advocating for low-income residents, either separately or in partnership with CSCAA within the counties of Alachua, Levy, and Marion. The awards are named after Mr. Freddie Wormack, who served with distinction on CSCAA's board of directors for over 25 years. It is my pleasure to inform you that the Board of Directors has selected City of Williston as our 2021 Freddie Wormack Levy County Partner of the Year.
All right.
So that was very, very nice. And I've recently met with them.
How nice.
I've recently met with them to embrace the organization for sure, and to bring them in to assist some of our residents that are struggling right now. So that's a partnership in the making, and it was really an honor to get that award. So we have a lot going on. Everything with Tractor Supply is on schedule, just so you know that. It's
Excellent.
working out very well, and we've had a lot of cooperation with Blue Rock as well as Tractor Supply, and as a result, we're getting a new main on First, and we're sharing costs, and it's been a real win-win for us, and I wanna thank Wright Pierce for really stepping up with that and helping us with the permits and everything we need to do to keep them on track, because we want that store to open on time, for sure. And it's also gonna help with the future O'Reilly's, auto parts and their connections, so that's been great, and our public works staff, I commend them for really staying on top of it. Working with Fred Fox on more Cdbg programs right now. For the next year, we're hoping we can maybe get some pump station rehabilitation, emergency generator installation grant, money. All this has to do, this needs to be connected with, stormwater mitigation, these projects. So just so you know that, storm mitigation type projects. So we've got, emergency generators. We're looking at a stormwater infrastructure project in East Williston that's been asked for, I've heard, since I've been here in the last 3 years several times. So I remember that, and we made that a priority to try and get that on the list. Nothing's in stone yet, I'm just telling you we're in due diligence. And East Williston wastewater collection system upgrade. So, high priorities, we're working through it now to make sure everything, we qualify, and then we'll go forward with trying to get the funding for it. So that's happening. We finished our safety awareness study through American Public Gas Association, so they went and they did a big, survey, out of 1,144 homes. They had 81 respondents, but it's something that we're required to do all the time, and so we got a nice survey out of that, so we know what's going on out with our public and our gas. And I think y'all got, Swanee River, League of Cities, agendas for the next 2, 9, 26, 22, so I don't know if you got that. All right, then I'll make sure you get copied on it.
I did. Somebody else might have, but I did not.
Okay. And then Country Lane Estates, we're very close just to getting that off the ground too. So we're like within, I'd say 6 weeks.
Goes
I'm
down.
starting that deal goes down too. We're still working out some kinks on that, but we're closer than we have been, and it's exciting, and they want to move forward quickly. So we have a lot going on. That's all I got.
Perfect. Okay, I'll start with Ms. Hines. If you got anything for the agenda tonight that you'd like to make in the way of a update or an announcement?
It's not really an update from me, but I would like to maybe receive an update, to figure out if anybody's taken a look at the concern that, the resident had about the lights on the northeast side of town.
They have, I think, you may have missed it, they did update us, maybe that was a meeting you missed. If you would like, if somebody wants to, I know that they took a ride, in that neighborhood. I mean, anybody wants to?
Donald, did you want to speak to her, or do you want me to wait and bring it back?
No, that's fine. I believe what happened was we went out and looked at, who controlled the lights out there, and it was outside of anything that the city controlled. So we went ahead and referred that to the county, and, we're trying to work with them, not just to see if they can solve it, but then to see if there is something that we can do. And we're coming back with a list of options, and, we'll report back on that.
I do know that the lady that was here that brought it up, I asked where she lived. It turns out, I don't believe she lives in the city limits.
Correct.
Right.
She lives in Ocala.
And so we tried to get a specific address for her, and that's when we realized that she didn't live in the city limits. And what he's meaning is that, the city electric doesn't go that far.
Right.
I don't know exactly where it stops.
It's Clay. It's Clay Electric.
Clay Electric.
So they have Clay Electric, but I have Big.
Correct.
How is that if it's in between?
Where does it go, where does it stop?
That's just the indication
That doesn't make sense
of, that's the only indication that I have at the moment. Like I said, they're gathering information, Streets and Parks Supervisor.
And actually, that area is where our church is, and we pay city.
Where, do you have an address?
Is it like New Hope or
exactly.
Down
It might have been, we didn't understand exactly where she was, we thought we knew the area she was
And
at.
just cross the tracks.
Okay.
And turn left.
Oh, yeah.
And turn,
Across the tracks and turn left. is
and
what
turn
she said.
left.
And I actually drove down there and there's no visibility.
I was thinking that we
Yeah.
went right, no?
Correct.
We did
Oh,
go, okay,
yeah.
so we had a
It's on the left.
misunderstanding on that, okay.
Yeah, the left is what she said.
Is her name on the tax roll, so we pull up her house and the
She doesn't live in city limits.
But she has.
She isn't reminded.
Over, she's your neighbor.
She's not my neighbor, I live in the area that she's.
Oh, okay, all right, then, so let's try that again. So if we contact you, we can get to her?
Just go across the.
No, what I'm saying is we need to speak to her, and if we need to contact her,
Sure.
you can help us do that?
Mhm.
Okay, all right, that's good.
And her name was in the minutes the following.
Right.
Thank you.
too,
All
good
right,
location.
that was a misunderstanding on left or right, so, okay,
Yeah.
we'll try that again.
Go across the tracks, turn left, and all, go all
In
the way.
that area.
Go all the way.
Down
up.
ten, yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
got it.
9, 10, 11.
Yeah.
All of them.
Okay, so let's get an update on that. Very good. Anything else? Mr. Mayor? Councilmember Robinson?
I do,
Okay, go for it.
of course, I do. First of all, simple thing, did we get the lights in the parking lot taken care of? And the strobe light that's out in front of the police department,
I don't personally have a report on that.
where's Mike?
Mike is out, And,
Never mind.
and so is, Jonathan, and so I was gone the previous 2 weeks, so they would have the answer on that one for sure.
Gotcha, okay. And another thing is, I've mentioned this a few times, and I've been on the council, 4 or 5 years, forever. When I first started, there was every committee chair here, there was every department, head here, giving an update, whatever their meeting was about. They were here, if we had questions, they were here to answer them, or just to be here. Instead, we're not getting that any longer, and I would like to see that happen once again. We're just not getting anything. If we do have questions, we have to wait 2 weeks before we get another, the answer for all of us.
Now, Jackie, when you were the planning director, you had your CRA chair, your, planning and zoning chair, and your board of justice chair.
Absolutely.
That's what she
I want
does, I believe.
updates on their meetings. I would like them to be here if we have a question. Instead, instead you hear complaints about some situations, and they need to be here to hear up front what's going on, rather than hearing secondhand
Was it the second
information.
meeting or the first meeting?
I think it was the first one of every month, Mr. Fuller?
Do you remember?
It was the second.
Second meeting. Had the second.
I would like
one.
to see that happen.
Okay, I'll get it back on.
Because the second meeting.
They agreed to be the chair heads, they agreed to be department heads, they agreed to be that job. We are part of them, they are part of us. That's all.
And I think it just got dropped when we changed people.
It got dropped when all kinds of.
Yeah, that's true.
Let me ask you,
You still get, copies of the minutes in your box? You don't get minutes, all right, that'll change. Thank you.
I do not. Councilmember Cox, you're good? Ms. Gorman, you?
No,
That's
good.
good already?
I got
Mr.
it.
Walker, anything for us tonight?
Code enforcement officer. Is this working?
You gotta turn it on.
I hear it.
Is that better?
I'm not sure.
Aaron?
I think it was working before.
You gotta get real close to it.
Code enforcement
There you go.
officer Carson and I appeared in front of Magistrate Silverman I think it was a week ago. And it's on a foreclosure. I'll bring that before you at your next commission meeting. I'm sure Code enforcement officer Carson will also have some additional information just as a preview. There's about a $4,500 ad valorem tax lien against the property. It's a little small lot. And you all need to give us some direction. If you want to foreclose on it, we'll foreclose, and we take it subject to that. So you're going to spend some money with that. You're going to spend money clearing the property as well, so you're gonna have over $5,000 into this little parcel. And we'll give you the information, the map, all that sort of thing. We can dismiss the case, but in between now and then, you'll see it in your packet information.
So the lien is not ours? It's
The lien
somebody,
is not
somebody
ours.
else? Okay.
Now,
Gotcha.
we probably get some small piece of that ad valorem tax money back to us, but it's gonna be a business decision for you all to make if you wanna go forward with it, or just call it a day and dismiss the case. And so, that's coming down the pike. We're working on the vesting period for your police department. They want to move it from 10 years to 6 years to try to, and Kirsten Blue, who's in the audience, is working on that right now. So she's got that underway. Next to Kirsten is Melissa Massey. She's shadowing us today. She picked a good day to shadow. She went to court with us, in-person court. And she gets to come to the city of Williston for the first time ever. So she volunteered for that.
Hopefully we don't scare her away.
She's a Newberry High School grad and is now at the University of Florida and wants to go to law school. And so Mr. Folds, who does a lot of mentoring and that sort of thing in our law firm, said, come on, we'll show you the city of Williston today. So, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I have some answers. As you know, I have stepped out because they were exposed, so they're in quarantine. Okay, Mike Miller says, yes, we do service 11th Street. So we do service that, those lights out there.
Okay.
So we'll work on that.
All right.
You get a copy of all the agendas for all the meetings emailed to you?
I do, but I
And
don't
the
know that
minutes are
anybody else.
attached?
I do, but I don't know that anybody else does.
Okay, I'll double check that.
Only
Police
because I
department,
asked for them.
the strobe light police department's been fixed for Jonathan, so that changed. The parking lot in front of City Hall's also fixed, so that's all been taken care of,
Yay.
according to our staff.
Hey, Mike. Following our last budget hearing, we were standing in the parking lot after the meeting, and the lights kept going off and off. And, I mean, the whole length of the linear park, not the whole, I don't think all the way past the next block. But they also went all the way to the police station. We could see them going off. Donald was with us as well. And you could see, and the police station was doing a really strobing job.
Strobe light.
The light that's on top that shines on your name up top. And then they would come back one at a time. And then it would happen again. And Donald actually called Mike while we were standing there, so I knew something had been done.
It would have been great during Halloween, because it was really
Okay.
quite creepy.
It was very
to
creepy.
watch. But, thanks staff who's tuning in out there on answering these questions. I appreciate it.
Good, perfect, thank you, Mike. So are they listening online and call, and send it to you?
They are, they're answering your questions, so it might be a little delayed, but I'm getting contact. so.
Thank you, staff, delayed than not.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely, I'm glad they're there.
We do what we can.
Okay, Melissa, do you have anything for us tonight as HR? Any other department heads have anything they want to add at this point that's not on the agenda in the way of an announcement?
Just to let you know that the county did not get the reimbursement check for the out-of-zone calls in yesterday's meeting. So that will be, should be approved, and we should be getting a check after the next county commission meeting.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay, then we're gonna move to new business, which is item number 5, and we have State Representative Joe Harding here with us tonight. Give us a legislative update. Thank you, sir, we appreciate you coming.
I was hiding in the back there, so I had to do a little walk.
We saw you through, yes.
Well, thank you all, first of all, for having me, and giving me an opportunity to come give you a short update. And I want to first just thank council for your service to our city. I try to do that everywhere I've gone. This is my 6th municipal meeting I've done. My goal has been since session to meet with every organized government in the district, which is 9 between the cities and the counties. And this one's unique because I also live here, and I call Williston home, and it's a native of Williston, so it's an honor to be able to represent my hometown. And so thank you all for all the work you're doing. I'm excited for what's happening in the city of Williston. I have the opportunity to serve on 5 committees. I'm in the Florida House. I serve on education, the overall large education committee. I serve on secondary education. I serve on healthcare appropriations, regulatory reform, which handles anything that has the word regulation in, no matter what it's relating to. And I also serve on local administration, which is where most local government issues come through. So I'm happy to say that most of the issues that come up in the legislature this year that came through local administration, which were issues that other cities or counties were doing that were not in line with what I know our values are in this city. And so I was glad to see that, and actually I can say that for my whole district, which is why I love this part of Florida. I ran 6 bills, 5 of which passed through the process, and 4 were signed into law by our governor. As a representative, you're allowed to present 6, and now going into this year, 7 bills. And so I ran as an unapologetic conservative. I am an unapologetic conservative, and so I'm happy to say that we ran bills that were in line with that kept the role of government in line, that were something of passion that I was passionate about was workforce education, and we ran a bill that was a huge part of a speaker priority and really doing an overhaul of our workforce education system. We have, and this is something that I believe really pertains to this part of Florida, and that is that we have a large population that chooses not to go to college, and that's okay because we need them. We have labor shortage and workforce shortages across the board, and you hear that from any business that you go into in this city and throughout the area. And I'm excited about what's happening. You know, some of it is just holding the career source type organizations accountable. There are many great organizations, but they also receive a lot of dollars. And so something we did was a deep dive into what's our return on investment. Here's what we're spending as a state, and the federal government's pouring in this much. What are we getting? What are the numbers of students that are getting placed in better jobs? And so I could talk about that issue all day, but that's an issue that we will continue to work on. We made a small progress this year on a funding request to be able to provide scholarship opportunities for workforce certificate programs, and you're going to see us continue to work on that year after year. Long term, my goal on that is how do we target these students that are in high school that are choosing not to go to college or aren't going to go to college? What are we doing to make sure that when they get out of high school, they can step into a job, start paying wages, or start earning wages, and then they pay taxes to our city, and ultimately it helps our city, and we can grow our infrastructure and our public safety. So those were a couple of things. I could go into more, but I would say the biggest thing on what we accomplished this session was there were a lot of questions going into session this past year that had to do with our budget and the outlook of our state. And you know, I can tell you that projects that may be 30 miles from here, but they impact us collectively, like the high school that's being built up in Chiefland. And a project like that, we're in jeopardy because we didn't know not only new project funding, but reoccurring funding was under question. And it's not just the leadership of our governor that's been pivotal in keeping our state moving, but also our legislator was a big part of that. And keeping our economy going as much as possible so that our sales tax revenue, which is a large part of our funding for our state, was kept intact. And I have to mention that because we forget it. We've moved on. We're still in the COVID pandemic, but we're a year and a half behind some of those discussions that we had of what our financial outlook looked like for our state. And I think it's something that we have to keep remembering so we can build on this, and if we ever are faced with a similar circumstance, we can learn from that. Going into this year, some of the priorities I have, and this is a unique, so last year was considered an election year because it was the election after the election session, so we had a little bit more time leading into session. Session was a little bit later. This year, our committees start meeting in September, October, November, and then session starts in January. So I've had to pivot quickly and start thinking about what are we working on this next session. One of the joys of passing 5 of your 6 bills or getting signed into law is that you get to kind of start over and reset and reload. And you know, on conservative issues, we'll continue to work on that. But issues that relate to our district and the city of Williston are partnering with you on infrastructure projects. I know there's numerous needs in the city. It's the beauty of living here, I know that. And part of what's going to come with the growth we are experiencing is the continued need for infrastructure, whether it's utilities, sewer related, road related, there is a process that we can help with, and know that I'm here, and if I don't know the answer, we're gonna work and figure it out. And so as you look on your forecast for this next year, I would ask that, start talking, and if some of you reached out, and I'm excited about that, let's start talking about how I can be a help, earlier, because the earlier I can start talking, whether it's the committee chairs that a funding request is gonna come through, the earlier I start that in September and October, the better chance, we have. And I'll give you an example. I had a funding request this past year that came in, and it was from another municipality. It was a $250,000 appropriation, which, when you look at a $101 billion budget, it's not a lot of money. But it was very important to me, and I know it was important to the constituents that in the municipality that brought it to me. And I worked that bill just like I did all the other bills I had. I worked that thing all the way through, up into the last session. Last day of session was Monday. And the Sunday before that, I was at 9:30, I was sitting in the appropriation chair's office waiting on him to show up so I could find out what was going on. He wasn't answering his text, so I'd sit outside his office until I got an answer. And I'll take that work ethic on. I know that we're gonna have a lot of work to do together, and I'm excited not just about this coming year. Hopefully the voters keep sending us back there. We have another 7 years, hopefully, in the legislature, and have a great opportunity to work with you all and so many of the other surrounding municipalities and counties. And with that, I'd also mention that you should expect to see an invitation from us probably in the next week or two on our delegation meeting for Levy County. Is going to be sometime in October. We're working on ironing out those dates, so expect to see that. And that's a good time if you have some plans on some things you're going to ask appropriation requests from the state on, or policy even requests. That would be a great time to start ironing that out. So that's the update I had, and I appreciate you. Know that I'm here. I'm always a phone call away, and it's an honor to be able to represent you all and serve alongside you. So.
We appreciate you coming.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Sounds like good advice.
Yes.
Need to start early is what we need to do. Okay, under item number 5, new business, we have B, which is discussion with possible action for quotes on the airport ground power unit.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, here.
I think you turned it off. Heard it click.
How about now?
Yeah.
All
There
right.
you go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, I've got a couple of things for the airport, one of which being we are in a pretty good need of a ground power unit. Just to give you guys an idea of what a ground power unit does for the airport, it's basically like a jump box, but for jets. We allow them to hook up to this. They can start inputting their primary flight plans and secondary flight plans while not having to start the engines, which saves them a lot of gas. They can also start their air conditioning units, which is a huge boon for their customers, especially in Florida in the summertime. We've been without a ground power unit for about a month now because our last one is on the fritz, and thankfully we had a grant come across our table that is going to be able to fund this, and so right now we're looking at the Aviation Ground Equipment Corp as our primary. The unit is a Hobart 1400. I've talked to a couple of different representatives who are in sales and different things like this, and this is one of the units. This is the unit that we need to accomplish everything that we have with the airplanes that we service. This isn't an overly abundant unit that just has crazy amounts of power that can power a 747 or anything like that. But for the the smaller jets that we service regularly, this will allow them to plug in, run their air conditioning, and actually start, which is the big part, is starting their engines on this unit. Any questions?
You answered the only one I have. Which one, my only question was which one do you recommend?
Which one? That's what
Yeah, that was my only question.
Yes, ma'am. It's the Aviation Group Equipment Corp.
So the first one.
Yes, ma'am.
Gotcha. Right.
Why did you go, well, besides $2,000 cheaper, why'd you go with that one rather than the other?
We have a gentleman, over in Melbourne that has been servicing them for years, and, he said, you know, if I sold you this unit, I'd never talk to you again, which, you know, is not necessarily a great thing, but he also put us in contact with his sales rep and who he buys it from, because we've been a good customer of his, and which is what knocked the $2,000 off of it.
Gotcha. I'm just curious. Okay. I do too.
How old is the existing one you have, and about what's the lifespan of these?
That's a great question. We actually have 3 right now. One of them is a diesel unit that was made in, I think it was '94. And since I've been here in, 2 years, we've probably dumped about $10,000 in repairs in it. And the voltage regulator, the last people that we, signed up with to have them come look at it, they weren't able to find a voltage regulator for it. The second one that we have was a unit that was, it was kind of just sitting in the hangar when I got here. Had the guys come out, look at it, and hook it up to the wall, which we have a wall unit, which is what this one is. It doesn't have an actual engine in it. It plugs into the wall and has 3-phase power coming through it. Burns a little cleaner. But, the wall unit was from the 1980s, and then we have a gas-powered, generator that was our one that was on its last leg, and its voltage regulator is now going on the fritz, and it's a 1980s model as well. So they're
25 years, 25 years?
Yes, sir.
Sounds good.
And if we get this one brand new like we're attempting to do, we won't have to buy one for a very long time. Knock on wood.
25 years.
Okay, so, it does say possible action.
Right.
Do we need a resolution for purchase? We would, wouldn't we?
For purchase.
Yeah, so we could vote on it and you can present the resolution,
We'll take care of it.
because I don't believe there's a resolution in our packet.
No, there isn't.
I don't believe so.
I've been looking.
Yeah. So, we can do the resolution for the purchase of the quote for Aviation Ground Equipment Corp. Let's see the amount. Keep rolling my thing here. Trying to make sure I got the total. $12,545?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion. Or would you rather wait for the resolution to come back?
Wait on the resolution.
Wait on the resolution. Okay. Mr.
I was just curious, when you talk about jets, are these, jets that haul freight, or the jets that haul passengers?
They're, out of the Wilson Airport, we don't have any freight flights just yet. All of these are privately owned jets who are hauling, their owners, basically.
So they're board here in Wilson?
Yes, sir.
Really?
Yeah, feel free to come out, I'll show you around.
You didn't know that?
Yeah, come, go look.
Go out there, you need to go out there.
I just mowed all the grass, so it looks great, come on.
I didn't know you got.
Before it grows tomorrow.
Boarding jets.
Oh, yeah. We probably have 5 or 6 or 8.
Jets, we're upwards of 15 now.
15, okay.
Based
All right.
in Williston.
Basin.
All right, the ones that are around, I forgot the ones on Wellfield area.
Right.
Yeah.
All you have to do is live at the end of a runway, you don't know how many's there.
Yeah, for sure, right? Now, he'd love to give you a tour, he gave me one not long ago, it's an interesting,
I'd like to.
he's got a golf cart, he'll take you around.
Yeah, come on.
It's always a good ride. Okay, all right, so, it looks like we need a resolution for that particular one, and if you'll bring that back to us, we'll be good with it. Okay, all right, we'll move on to the next one that does have a resolution. Resolution 2021-45, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Williston, Florida, to approve an amendment to the Public Transportation Grant Agreement, FDOT project number 431258-1-93-22 for the Williston Municipal Airport Design and Rehabilitation
The resolution.
for general aviation. Do you want now?
The project number, you said 93, it's 94?
Oh, 94.
On the resolution.
It is 94, did I say 93? 9422 for the Williston General Aviation Transient Apron and Construction Taxiway H Connector. Amendment 2 for execution. Mr. Siegel.
So this amendment, is a very simple amendment to the PTGA. What it does is there was language, in the original PTGA that said that there needed to be two separate engineering firms working on the project, one for planning, one for execution. Recently, airports were given an exclusion from that language, so this amendment has that exclusion in it. This grant is still 100% funded by the FDOT, and, well, between the FDOT and FAA, it is 100% funded.
All right, and let's see, if you go a little farther, into the packet, there's a nice picture. Let's see what page is this, page 21. Has a nice picture, it kind of gives everybody an idea of what we're talking about. There it is. We've needed that taxiway H a long time.
Taxiway H is, the project was bid out into 3 different phases, and Taxiway H was the 3rd phase, but it's looking like FDOT is gonna, and the FAA is gonna be able to fund that portion of the project as well, so we're really excited about that.
That's good. Okay. All right, so, any questions for Mr. Siegel? Entertain a motion for approval. Get it right. For resolution 2021-45.
I move that we approve resolution 2021-45.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion from anyone? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, ladies.
Yes, sir, thank you. All right, item D is resolution 2021-46, a resolution of the City of Williston, Levy County, Florida, adopting the language access plan for the limited English proficiency persons for the Rebuild Florida General Infrastructure Program Community Development Block Grant Disaster Mitigation Program. That's a mouthful. Yeah. And other federally funded grant programs. Ms. Gorman.
Council, during my, earlier when I was telling you what was going on, I did mention this Cdbg disaster mitigation program and things we had going forward. Part of that Cdbg program is some of the rules have changed. Now we have to adopt what they call the 4-factor analysis, which we've met 3 of 4 of the factors that we have to, that was all included in the packet. The one thing that we didn't adopt is advertising our projects in both English and Spanish. So the grant's going to reimburse us if we have to provide oral translation at a public meeting, but we have to have the ability to translate. And that's part of the rule now of getting CDBG funding for this mitigation, disaster mitigation. So this resolution adopts this access plan for limited English proficiency persons for the Rebuild Florida General Infrastructure Program CDBG disaster mitigation. So tonight we're just asking you to adopt this resolution. Once it's signed, I'll send it to Fred Fox, who's working on this grant. We can show them that we have adopted this as part of our program.
Okay. Okay, a motion?
I make a motion that we approve resolution 2021-46.
Okay, have a second from Tom. Any discussion from anyone? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, item number E is Laurel Point conceptual recommendation for approval.
Hello, I wanna, as you know, Laura's not here, so we're just, gonna let our engineer take it from here and explain the project and go through it with you. So, Mr. Demir, you're on.
I'll show up with some handouts.
If you will, state your name for the record
Yes, ma'am.
and the company you represent.
My name is Christopher Gamir. I am a professional engineer representing Gamir Engineering, who's also representing Kim Boyer, the owner of the property. The packet I'm sending out to you just really has 2 things with it. The first thing is several pictures, some conceptual photos of what these pocket neighborhoods would look like. I also have them in the presentation so that the public can see them as well. I just kind of wanted to be right there in front of you. And then since the last time you saw this with your package, and since then we realized we had some typos in the calculations. So I have a table of that, and that's also one of the sheets as well, some of the calculations, open space and those kinds of things. Very straightforward. Actually, do you have an extra one? I don't know. Always remember to keep one for yourself. All right. So, as you can see on your screen here, this is sort of a conceptual layout of the proposed development. It's a mixed-use development, and so we have a mixture of commercial and residential. So maybe the last time you saw this, many months ago, we had all the commercial in the eastern leg of this L. You can see it's an L shape going behind the Winn-Dixie. And we decided to split up that commercial to have that both road frontages. That made exactly, great idea. Allows that residential to be more secluded, to have that pocket neighborhood feel, allows for shorter, slower traffic, better traffic runs so that people coming in this neighborhood realize it's a little more secluded and right on the roadway there. It just made a lot of sense to do that. In addition to that, we have a master stormwater pond with this design. And so there's a little bit at the east end, but also a big chunk of it along the western side. And so that also makes sense to have that shared with the commercial as well, since it's going to be serving this whole development. That's a major change. One of the concerns that came up is about having a very active homeowners association. And the way you do that is really try to get as much involvement as possible. That really led us to figure out how can we maximize the number of units and still get it to function, because the more homeowners you have, more opportunity you have for more active involvement in a homeowners association. So we're at 60 units right now. We have all of the lots where the units are sort of in 10-unit groups is probably the way to think about it, groups of 10, in which the front of the houses will be facing each other, so that they have a shared sort of walkway with green areas planted in front of the units. And at the rear, we have 3 parking spaces per unit that's on their actual lots. And the idea behind that was we're trying to not have this feel like an apartment complex, but have it feel more like single-family homes, but not be single-family homes, meaning that we're not going to have large lots, we're going to have a lot of shared common areas. All right, so that's where we're sort of straddling the line between single-family and multifamily. We want this to feel like a lot of homes that have a lot of shared resources, and again, to have that shared sort of neighborhood feel when we have these pocket neighborhoods. What these groupings of 10 homes do is then allows for most of the traffic movements to be off the main road, slower areas. We have areas for kids to play in these back portions, so that they're not on the main road kind of going through the center of the development. In addition, at the very end of these sort of shared driveways, we have that path going along the rear. We have the paths going in front of the houses that are joining to. There's so much interconnectivity in which you can find ways to walk around the entire neighborhood and a lot of different ways to really enjoy the landscaping of this pocket neighborhood. Yeah, you can move on to the next slide as well. So this shows the very generic zoning. So you can see the red areas are the commercial, and the residential is the central, that's the leg part of the L there, the bed of the L. So again, that just kind of shows overall what the uses are going to be like. And if we move on to the next slide, this is a major change that needed then to have the city be actual partner with the developer on this. So you'll notice First Avenue in that top image goes straight across the whole bottom of the development, okay, very straight, and it had a leg sort of sticking up, right? Well, Winn-Dixie didn't like the location of that leg, right? In addition, FDOT didn't like the alignment of First Avenue because it didn't align with First Avenue across the street. So we kind of took this opportunity, since we're going to replat this whole area anyways with a plat. One of the advantages of it is we can realign right-of-ways and kind of realign some of those items when we're going through that process. One of our first questions is, well, whenever you have right-of-ways, you have infrastructure that goes along with those right-of-ways, okay? So we actually identified an error that we're sort of fixing with this. There's a water main and a gas main that comes through First Avenue, but guess what? They installed that water main and gas main where we're proposing to build it. So you can think about it, the contractor at the time just went right across that property, didn't even care at all where First Avenue actually was, and he took the path of least resistance through the site. Well, it just so happens that us realigning this right-of-way will actually put the right-of-way on top of those existing utilities, and will save having to reconstruct or move or change those existing utilities. So actually, it worked out really well. So the top dimensions is what it is today, with that yellow outline showing what's proposed, and the bottom is what's proposed today. And on top of that, interconnectivity with the Winn-Dixie parcel is now being changed from a right-of-way to more of what it should be, which is an ingress-egress easement between the two private properties. Because there's no need to have a public road going to the Winn-Dixie subdivision. That was a major change in why the city is actually going to be joining with this private developer in this plating, because it kind of solves and fixes a whole bunch of issues with one action. With more on that, I'm pretty sure we'll be following up soon with you all with the developers agreement, because obviously the private developer in the city will have to make an agreement so that we understand who's all responsible for what and who's responsible for what component of these improvements. But again, that's something that will come to you later on, but we're thinking that ahead of time with this conceptual plan. Okay, we move on to the next slide.
One question, the easement will be left as green space?
No, so an easement is left there, it's called ingress-egress easement, so it's just defining that there's going to be a road connection through there. However, it's a private road agreement versus being a public right-of-way.
So there will be a road?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but it's going to be yours instead of ours?
Exactly correct.
Gotcha, all right.
Another question. So the homes on the end don't share common green space with anybody? They have their own?
So we keep a buffer, what do you mean by homes at the end? So the ways to look at it, there's the end of the 60 units, or at the end of those driveways, if you will.
So
You can go back a couple slides if you
If we'll go back. I think that one.
Yeah, that one.
No, the other. Number one.
Oh, the very, very first one, okay.
Oh, the other one. So, over by where the retention pond is, right
Yes.
behind Winn-Dixie, there's a group of homes, and then over by the main road, there's a group of homes. Those two don't share, common space with any other houses, right?
Oh, I see what you mean, like a front yard. They have their own front yard, but you're right, they're not sharing that with anybody. At some point, you have homes with fronts and backs, fronts and backs, fronts and backs. Well, at some point, you get sort of the last run of homes. And if they were to share it with somebody, well, then that none of their home would be something. So at some point, it kind of gets cut off. You're right.
Do they have more acreage on those, in those areas than the ones?
That's a great question. So the lots are identical in size, but then the surrounding shared space is about maybe half or 3/4. But again, that's all shared space, so they all share those specific areas. And then those homes that would be fronting that private driveway there, their sidewalks would be going to that private driveway with a shared sidewalk along that private driveway. So it's sort of one half dozen or the other. It's all sort of shared common space between all the homes versus their front yard, if you will. It's a shared front yard.
Right, the one to the west seems to have common space, even though they don't have somebody fronting them. But-
Yeah, each
but
lot
they-
is unique. You know, the property isn't perfectly straight. It tapers in certain areas, it gets wider in other areas. And then there's also a lot of topography on the site. So there's gonna be areas where we're gonna be cutting and filling, and so there's gonna be some areas that will have, the edge of the driveway, and they dip down to have sort of the walkway going to it, and it'll dip down into the property line. You know, nothing in site plan design is flat,
Just a
perfect
copy.
level all the time.
Looking at this here, homes like, 30, 25, 20, that all runs right along Winn-Dixie's parking lot. What kind of barrier, buffer is gonna be there, or is this gonna be one of these things where you build it, and then those residents gonna be like, Winn-Dixie's lights are always on till 11 o'clock at night?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So we had that question, that's where Jackie's really stood up for that. That's been a constant component. This entire revision is we're keeping, definitely a fence, but also plantings along that whole line. We have some language in the conceptual plan that defines what that needs to be.
There's gonna be light, and there's gonna be sound as well.
Yeah, but also part of that is,
Yeah.
and none of this is gonna be a surprise, like many times the things that come in front of you, are where you have a residential subdivision, right? And then maybe there's a blank empty lot next to it. Well, then 10, 15 years later, something gets built in that property, and then those residents are surprised by it. Well, we sort of have the opposite thing here. We already have the busy shopping center, and so we're building this residential, so it shouldn't be a surprise for anybody, but also they should be moving here because they see this as a feature. This is what they want. I don't think it's gonna be a surprise to anybody.
Some people may.
And I just wanted to add to that if I could. Thank you for remembering that from your planning commission, David, I forgot that. The beauty of a mixed use like this, especially when you mix it with commercial, is they have the opportunity to frequent Winn-Dixie. I love it when I can be a planner again. They could be Winn-Dixie, they can go to, McDonald's, they can go to the strip center, they can go to wherever commercial comes in on both ends. They can walk, they ride their bike, they don't have to get in their car and constantly drive around. That's the whole point of this. So people who usually look for this type of destination are gonna understand there's some intensity involved. So we headed this off, and you said that very well, back when the planning commission did their job, when they said, you make sure that we buffer the best we can. But then again, people have to understand, if you buy it near an airport, there's gonna be airplanes flying over here, or a train going by, if you buy near tracks, this is no different. You buy next to a shopping center, you're gonna have a certain amount of intensity, so, it's all uniquely designed together.
To remind you of that when it comes the first time.
No, and I get it, but hopefully that they'll recognize this as being this type of development. So, it's like buying an apartment downtown Gainesville, expect noise. You know, some people want quiet, go to the country, way out in the country, and if that's what you want. But this, I think, this is a great opportunity for this property, because it's so irregularly shaped anyway, that we're really excited to see this come together. I think.
The big thing, this is already there, so they're not gonna be surprised by it. So they're moving here knowing that this is what they want.
And you said there's gonna be a homeowners association attached to it as well?
Yes. Anything time you have shared properties, like common areas, stormwater facilities, any of those kinds of things, there's always a requirement for a homeowners association. Someone has to pay for it, someone has to maintain it, and that's why the bigger it is, the better, because you get more involvement, you have more people involved, more opportunity for the right people who care about that subdivision to be there to put across the adequate resources for it. Just like you all as council members, you all care about this community because you have a tight connection, you have enough people here, you have the right neighbors, you want to be involved.
And remember, for a pocket neighborhood, your focus goes on your architecture and your landscape. That's the beauty of this. So being planned development and being a pocket neighborhood, there's certain things that you're going to expect. If you look at the crossings, they did it very well in the fact that they put amenities where they needed to be, and everybody decorated around it, and it increased in value because it was so well done. When the architecture is done right and when the landscape is done right, people are going to buy into that and they're going to want it to stay. So that's the whole concept of this HOA, is to make sure they can appreciate the intent of what this pocket neighborhood is supposed to bring to them.
When is the developer gonna turn over the HOA to the residents?
So that's all following state statutes. There's a certain requirement in which when people, I'm sorry, go ahead.
51%.
Yeah, exactly right. This is all done by state statutes, following standard HOA guidelines. There's nothing special that this developer can somehow do to them. Yeah, it's following very standard guidelines.
I know at one time, the development they had to sell all the units or whatever before they would turn over the HOA to the residents.
Yeah, I would say that's become so much less and less of an issue because of the modifications they've made to the HOA requirements. That turning over process is now outlined in all the HOA establishment documents. You'll be reviewing those if they come before you. That's part of the approvals. We have to submit them to the Water Management District because they have to make sure there's provisions in there for the protection of the stormwater ponds. Everyone has a say in reviewing of these HOA documents.
How thick are the HOA documents going to be?
Oh, just, little giant.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Mr. Fuller is our chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I know he's itching to say something.
Well, there's a couple of questions. One is that, a homeowners association is not something set in stone forever, correct?
That's a great question. So when we now present something over to a group, they now vote on that. And yes, they can change items and certain provisions over time. However, there's also part of the fact that they're reviewed underneath a PD, and they'll have to keep those provisions of the PD in place. Sorry about that.
PD means?
Correct. So let's say you had commercial zoning. There's certain things like buffers, et cetera, that no matter what the owner of that commercial property decides to do, they have to provide these sort of minimum buffers, et cetera. So for this mixed-use development, it has a special plan development zoning on it, which has these requirements such as the buffer from the Winn-Dixie, the density, the mixture of uses. So yes, the HOA could change a lot of the rules of how they run from day to day, but as soon as any of their rules would try to change these PD revisions, they would have a zoning violation, first of all, if they try to do that. Second of all, they could come before you all and get those PD things changed, but we go through that process then, we walk through it, balance how things are, because obviously we can't project a million years in the future. So obviously something might change between now and 50 years from now, but that's going to be the back and forth between what part comes back in front of the city and what part that they can do on their own.
Well, my concern was this, is that what happens when the homeowner association just decides to dissolve itself? You got shared spaces there, and how is that shared space going to be maintained? Who's going to do it, if at all? And then the other thing is, the thing that I just wanted to bring to the council's attention, one of the things we had a concern about was parking. Because when you have a development like this, you have friends come over, or you have parties, or whatever, where's the parking? And that's gonna be an issue with 16 homes in there. If 10 of them decide they're going to have a gathering, say for Thanksgiving or whatever, you got a safety issue there, even if they can even get through.
Sure, so I can address both of those. So for the first one about the Homeowners Association, that's something that happens everywhere. There's property owned by the association that is managed by the association, and it would be just as if some homeowner decides to sort of abandon their property. You know, at some point, that's something that has to get reestablished. There's legal guidelines associated with that, state guidelines when it comes to HOAs, and I think that's something that's a managed risk that happens all across the state of Florida.
I will say, we don't have any. That's why we're asking such.
Right, to where they're done.
Primary questions.
They're not new.
You're right, we just don't have any in the city limits.
Exactly.
It's our first one, so you're our trial.
And thank goodness, this is also not new for the state, it's not sort of new there. So there's a lot of guidelines and other reviewing agencies, like the Southwest Florida Water Management District, along with your attorneys, et cetera, that have seen these multiple times, not to mention the banks. The banks are going to be giving loans on these kinds of items. They're also going to be looking at the HOA documents.
Right.
So there's a lot of hand-holding and a lot of institutional experience that are going to be looking at these HOA documents. You're not going to be the experiment for this kind of
I will say those are the primary two issues that the Planning and Zoning Commission had.
Right.
Having attended their meeting, was the Homeowners Association, the fact that it's shown on their deeds.
Correct.
That they're deed restricted as having a, homeowners association, and also visitors parking.
Right, and so we can talk about that.
And wanting to have a dedicated space for that is possible.
Right, and that's what I already talked about this a little bit, I'll go over it again, because that's important. We're walking the line between a traditional single-family subdivision and an apartment complex. We want to be somewhere in the middle, and that's why we didn't want to have a separate visitor parking lot, because that makes it feel more of an apartment complex. We want to kind of attract people who are looking for single-family homes, but don't want to have a large yard, but yet they still want to have amenities to walk through. That's sort of this middle ground, the cottage neighborhood we're trying to attract. And so the way we did that was, we provided 3 parking spaces behind every single lot.
I am happy to see that.
Yes.
Before, we
Yeah.
only thought there was one.
Right.
I am happy to see that the 3 are showing there. That's something new that I hadn't noticed before.
And that's where we think that is the balance we're choosing to go, is to keep the tone of the cottage neighborhood. That's how we chose to address this concern.
So the road that runs along there, is it the regular width or a little wider of a 2-lane road?
So we have a standard 24-foot wide road, that's a standard roadway, and then we have sidewalks going along the main roadway for the whole length, from all the way from 27 all the way through the whole entire L, okay? And then every driveway that goes in those groups of 10 homes, that's a standard 24-foot wide driveway, so it allows for 2-way traffic, and then we have 3 parking spaces per lot. So if we think about that sort of grouping there, that's 3 times 10, that's 30 parking spaces for every group of 10 homes. So yes, there'll be guests maybe who come over or something like that. You may have to ask your neighbor if you can use their parking space. Maybe they have 1 car, maybe they have 2 cars. Well, they're at least probably aren't going to have 3 cars. So maybe ask a couple of your neighbors when you're having a get together. And that's the kind of community feel we wanted versus having a whole separate visitor parking lot.
Because I've been in some places in Gainesville, in the neighborhoods, they're parking along
Yeah.
side of the road.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know.
And that's what
I
the
see that.
planning and zoning is trying to address. They don't want that to happen.
Right. But in those neighborhoods, some of them have maybe a garage.
Yep.
Maybe they have a single garage with a single roadway coming to it. So they have their personal car parked in the driveway. Well, then any guest can use the street. Or here we have 3 parking spaces behind every single lot.
So there are no garages in these units, okay?
Correct.
I couldn't tell. By the way, there were different colors, I didn't know that was a garage.
Yeah, that's to give us,
Yeah,
this is an
dimension.
engineer trying to do a color rendering.
I do. Yeah, I thought so.
It's
pretty. It is?
Did Winn-Dixie ask for any walkways between there, like where the buffer is? So they could
Jeff can
walk?
give more background on that.
I spoke to them for quite a while, mainly for the road that got moved. Originally, it was in a spot that if it opened up, somebody run through there and go, they'd run over everybody coming out of Winn-Dixie, like right in line with their front door. So that was a concern, and we worked through that and moved the road down. They were concerned about buffering and wanted to make sure that the connection, everything was gated and that it had fenced. And in the backside, they got a retention area behind Winn-Dixie, so there's no walking gonna take place back there, they're gonna kind of go around.
Correct, it's only the southern.
So it's only on the southern edge there, and we told them that would be fenced and it would be gated enough for people to be able to walk through there, so they were fine with that. Understanding the whole idea of being able to, this is gonna benefit Winn-Dixie greatly,
Oh, yeah.
as well as the property owners, so this is a win-win for everybody.
And I want to say thank you for sidewalks.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
I really do. Thank you for sidewalks. That's
It's
wonderful.
Transportation, it's where my kids go and do their sidewalk shop, right?
Yeah.
It's where you go and you stop to have a conversation on the side of the road, you're not worried about having to move out of the roadway and having that talk with the neighbor. Sidewalks aren't just transportation.
Oh, no, they're great. They're neighborhood.
Yeah, they're neighborhood buildings.
spots.
Yeah, the reason why I was asking, like, from homes 25, 20,
Can't turn around, so you get in there.
Yeah, go back to the
if there's gates
Back
that go out,
You got that already.
you're having a party, the Dixie's, unless they have a monitor.
They're parking lot.
I was just asking.
That's all, that's
We're living in the wrong neighborhood. I heard from planning and zoning too, was if you're not knowing what your HOA says, because they haven't seen it, was if you wanted boats and campers and motorcycles or trucks, I don't think you'll keep motorcycles or trucks out. I've been in HOAs that did, had to park the truck or the motorcycle and walk in. Our families had houses and things like that, not too far from here actually. But I don't think you'll do motorcycles or trucks, but you may do campers or, I don't think you'll allow a camper in there. I don't think you'll allow a pop-up or any kind of boat.
Yes, so those are vehicles, right? And we don't have any place to park them.
Right.
And you don't own the common area.
Yep.
So unless I'm mistaken, the only place they could park it is in their parking spaces, at which point you're using sort of your own parking space. And
I don't know how their neighbors don't like that, is what I'm trying to say.
Correct.
That's an opportunity for new business.
Yeah, most HOAs don't allow those things.
Exactly
They're-
correct. I don't imagine these HOA documents would be somehow unique in which they would allow 55, campers to be parked. I don't think it's gonna be like that at all. However, this is not the last step in this whole process. So we're at the conceptual phase. We're gonna move to a preliminary plat. We then have the site construction plans, and we have final plat. Each of those stages are gonna be back in front of you, showing stuff to you, progress is moving.
And there's a growing storage, business right next door, so they're not gonna have a problem finding a place to park.
So do you have any comments with this page?
Yeah,
I think we
the
stopped
biggest
you before
thing-
you got there.
Correct. Well, we can look through the pretty pictures.
They are pretty.
What we think, the cottage neighborhood is our goal.
How nice. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, you just see that's what you can do when you have it's hard to keep your own garden going, but when you have shared areas, much better to have the one garden guy come through that does everybody's, keeps it all going.
See a landscape business coming
Yeah, I
up
mean,
too.
again, that's some of the advantages of having an HOA, You're not trying to fit it in when you're trying to go on vacation and come back, or you're visiting a friend somewhere else. There's someone handling that and keeping the standard pretty even across your whole Yeah. And so the last numbers really comes to open space and showing how we're meeting some of the requirements. I think the biggest number to take here is that we have the overall plat area. So that's not just what private development is, but it's also that adjacent right of way. Because this is all gonna be one plat together, since we're adjusting some of the right of way with it. So overall, at 7.3 acres, that really hasn't changed at all. The, private portion will still remain the same, about 8.8 acres. I think the biggest is that we're gonna have an overall total open space of about 28.3 acres, associated with that. And that doesn't even take into consideration on those commercial lots, any landscape islands they're gonna have. I just assume those commercial lots are gonna be 100% developed, when even those will have open space associated with them. Let's see here. Yeah, I didn't take consideration any open space that may be less on the lots, so you'll have the lot with your house built on it, you'll have a little bit of landscaping around your house that adds a little bit extra on top of that. So really, that 28.3 is, we're gonna meet that and surpass that, minimum open space with this development, without much concern.
And what kind of timeframe do you look at this time?
It's a great question. So what we've also done with this entire process was figure out more of the phasing associated with it. So there's a big component that determined that phasing. It was sewer service. So the site starts really far uphill at the eastern end of the site and slowly goes downhill the further west you go. At some point along that, going down the hill, you can't service it with the existing city sewer. Okay? So that's where we cut off phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 1, we would go to that existing city sewer, along with commercial associated with it. And then phase 2 is where a lift station would have to be provided to service all of phase 2. And that makes sense to kind of group that with one grouping of homes, allows the first homes to kind of get started. And it's still a good grouping of homes, I think 20 homes for that initial phase. And so it's a really great starting, along with a mixture of commercial associated with it.
And just for, so you understand how this goes down, you'll see a preliminary plat. That's where we check zoning lot sizes and verify everything that's been approved, right? And then when those improvement plans come in, you're gonna approve the whole plan, but it's only gonna be built in phases. And the development agreement's gonna lay out how much time they have to complete those phases. And if they don't meet that, they gotta come back to you for an extension. So, we're hoping that everything's feel very confident it's gonna sell very quick and be able to continue this and it won't stop.
There's no concern about demand
At all.
right now.
Right.
Yeah, we definitely need houses.
We need houses.
You know, we need
Right.
houses
So
bad.
one more question.
Yes, sir.
I see water, sewer, what about gas?
That's all.
That's all gonna.
Yeah, that's all. So we're not even at the preliminary plat. Preliminary plat may address the availability of those utilities. So we're not even there yet technically, even though you can't plan these things without thinking somewhat ahead. So we've already thought through a lot of those items. But the construction plays where we get to the nitty gritty of how to actually connect each service up.
Okay.
there's a gas main running through First Avenue. I'm definitely aware of that. I've looked at that on a lot.
Okay, any other questions from this panel? Any questions from the audience? Mr. Webb?
How far apart are these homes approximately?
They're very close to each other. I think we have a 5-foot gap between the homes with, let's say 2.5 foot setback and 2.5 foot setback for 5-foot spacing between the actual physical homes.
Just wondering how you'll address noise, you know, if there's a noisy neighbor, is that the HOA or is that city regs that, determine, who enforces the noise ordinance?
Yeah, so in many other cities, it's sort of a mixture of both. That's where, at some point, it becomes the point where you could call an officer. So I've been in many ordinance meetings where we're calling stuff up. However, within any HOA documents, there's always private resolution of these kind of neighbor conflicts between them. That there's all types of fees that the HOA can charge someone if they're violating one of their rules. And so there's a whole process for that in almost all HOA documents.
If, really quick, Chief Stiegel.
Yes.
Is there not supposed to be a 7-foot separation between structures from building code for FMPA or?
Through the NFPA, through the NFPA?
NFPA, sorry, yes.
Is
it 7 foot?
I don't know
5 with
exactly,
firewall?
I don't know exactly what that setback's gonna be without reviewing the code.
Yeah.
But I don't believe we have adopted the NFPA codes in the city, have we?
I think it's part of the building code.
Now, it might be part of the Florida
It's part of
building
the building
code.
code, so we'll be double checking that, because I think
Yeah.
what happens, you gotta at least have firewalls, and if it doesn't, is that right, Chief?
That is correct.
I didn't catch that till now too.
Pardon?
I just saw that too.
Yeah, so we have a perfect, because right now this is just the layout, preliminary plats where we want to iron those kind of things out.
Mr. Fuller?
I'd certainly suggest more than 5 feet between them because, the standard lawnmower is more than 2.5 feet. And so just running a lawnmower on your property is going to impact the other person's property. So 5 feet is just not.
Yeah, HOA guys, the landscaper's gonna take care of all of it.
Yeah, if he takes care of all of it, then
Yeah.
It's very different. You have to really wrap your mind around a
Really
different
do.
sort of process. Yeah.
I mean, in an HOA, does he mow the whole thing? He does, doesn't he? Or
Right.
does he just do the common area?
So there's some ones where you dedicate, I think, seen all kinds.
Yeah.
Like Longleaf,
That's all
okay,
right.
they actually say your first 20 feet of your yard, that's the building setback, is maintained by the HOA. Even though you own it, you don't get to pick the plants, you don't pick those kind of things. You pick them as an HOA, if you're gonna change the landscaping. It can be structured in all kinds of different ways.
Cause I got a friend that lives in Trilogy, near 27 in Ocala. If a plant dies, she doesn't do anything, the HOA
Replaces it.
replaces it.
Yeah.
So,
It's a choice. It's
Yeah.
the kind of
How
life
it's
lifestyle
written.
you want.
Yeah.
And that's why you wanna look at that HOA document and make sure it's all there.
Dr. Bullock?
This, like you said, this is somewhere between single-family homes and apartments, and certainly there are means of keeping noises down between apartments. You got a wall between you and your neighbor, and I don't know why this would be a greater hazard for noise than the apartment complex.
Sure. Yeah, good point. We think of problems that are already addressed where people are already dealing with
It's
it.
essentially an apartment that doesn't have a shared wall.
Right, yeah.
With some grass between you.
Yeah, we're just not used to houses being that close together, but here we go.
Here we go.
We need them, like I said. We do. All right, anybody else? No. Okay, then let's see. Again, I don't have a resolution on this one either.
No, we just, for approval, recommending approval.
Are we just approving by consensus, or do you need a vote?
Need a vote?
I don't believe I have anything. Let me make sure in this little stack I don't have a resolution.
It
No,
changed
there's
from the
nothing.
original, sorry, everybody.
It did change from the first time you approved that master plan, so you really need to vote this so that we can move forward with preliminary plat, if you would.
So we're just recommending for approval.
Oh, the conceptual plat, right?
You're approving the conceptual.
Correct.
Yes.
All right, I'll go for it. I move that we approve the conceptual, approval for recommendation, city planner. For Laurel Point.
Okay, I have a motion, do I have a second? I have a second from, Councilmember Hines.
Is there a resolution on this?
No. Not
2021-46?
That was the one before. No, you're behind.
Oh, I'm behind now.
Yes, sir.
Not bad.
There should be one, but there's not, so. All right, so, any questions? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We get a resolution to go on to the next phase, how's that?
You have the next thing,
The next thing you'll see is, the preliminary plat.
Right.
No, you don't need a resolution with that. What you'll see after that is improvement plans, development agreement, HOA association. This is all more of a recorded document.
And then go on until we then have a final resolution.
I'm not sure why you'd have a
the agreement.
resolution for this.
Normally, we have a resolution on everything, but.
I know, but you're gonna have a document that has signatures on it with your plat.
Right.
So,
Gotcha. I signed one the other day that had 15, 20 signatures.
and development agreement, this is, you're gonna see this for a while.
Gotcha, okay.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, item F is discussion with possible action of rate quotes for medical and prescription drug benefit coverages from our HR director, Melissa Thompson. It's in your packet.
We did receive rates from SMIC for health insurance, dental and vision. It's a 12% increase.
Grab that mic, or a mic. Sorry.
So we received rates from SMIC for health, dental, and vision. It is a 12% increase. We did get a little bit of an explanation for that. It's due, everyone knows with COVID last year, rates were to increase. I did try negotiating a little bit. I'm still waiting for an answer back, just letting them know that normally anything over 7% is kind of excessive, and is there anything that they can do? I'm waiting on 2 plans with different rates from them, and then just to know from council whether you're wanting to RFP out or quote out for other health insurance plans. But rates are gonna be high with any healthcare provider this year. That's what.
Yeah, we probably don't have time at this point.
It would be very, very tight.
It would.
But it is a 12% increase.
It is substantial increase for the whole year.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody have copies? October 1st. It's pretty clear. I mean, even if we put it out on the end of August, it would be the end of September before we got it back. There is October 1st.
We're looking to do open enrollment like September 8th and 9th. Those are the 2 dates that I'm looking at. I haven't gotten an answer back yet, but that's just kind of, we're looking to do it a little bit earlier at that point.
Yeah, we're kind of over barrel at this time. We probably need to do it next time. Put it out, just check everybody. Maybe the atmosphere will be better by then too, the healthcare atmosphere.
So if you wanna, council wants to approve these, we can go ahead and sign the agreement.
Can I ask you a question? Page 53, says the Medicare exchange available, prescription drug copays, retail is $10.35.60, Medicare is $25.87.50, $150. Oh, so mail order was cheaper.
It's probably for 90 days. I mean, order is usually
Right,
90 days.
yeah.
90
That's
days.
what, when you look at the retail, that's the same way. There's 3 prices.
Well, it's 3 different tiers of drugs. The $10 is probably a generic, and the $35 is probably, the tier 2, and the $60 is the tier 3. And then if you do a mail order, you get 90 days instead of 30 days at a lesser rate. Instead of $30, it's only costing you $25 for 90 days worth. If you do a mail order, that would be my experience. That would be my experience. And I did see another reference to Medicare in here. It was a little confusing myself, but when you got a little farther into it, it talked about the fact that they were also offering United Healthcare, Medicare Advantage policies for people who were retiring early to get them, help them pay a lesser amount. And we do have that for our employees. If they, retire early, we pay for their health care for a certain period of time. So that is important to us as well. We pay for it until they qualify for Medicare, between 62 and 65. So to be able to buy it as a group is interesting. You know, I've never seen that before. Okay, so should we, I mean, again, there's no resolution, but, we need to carry on with it.
Yeah, I mean, and if you wanted to, I didn't know if you were gonna RFP out or not, so if you wanna approve this, I can get that resolution.
Okay, yeah, now on the next agenda. Everybody okay with that? She'll bring it back to us on a resolution?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, carry on. Okay, then we will move to item G, which is discussion with possible action approving the event date for the 4th of July celebration for 2022. And simply sitting in the office with City Clerk Latricia Wright, we realized that our normal July 3rd is a Sunday. So we would like to move it to Saturday, which would be July 2nd. We have done that historically. Moved back to the Saturday, which is, of course, always a day that we have better attendance anyway, rather than a Thursday or a Friday or whatever. Saturday's always big. I have also talked with Chief Stroh. Haven't talked with Utility Director because they weren't available, but I have talked with Chief Stroh, and he agrees that the July 2nd works for his team. And for getting assistance from other municipalities and counties, because they do theirs at a different time. And of course, they may move to the second too this year, but we'll see, I guess. So that was just kind of something we wanted to bring to you and ask for your approval, but we can't really go forward getting, booking, even getting quotes for fireworks or anything else until we decide when we're gonna have it. So is everybody okay with Saturday, July 2nd? Because the 3rd falls on Saturday, on a Sunday. Okay, I'm good. That's all I need today. And, if y'all would like to have a committee, a more active committee of people who are involved with the decisions that are made for the 4th of July, meaning fireworks, entertainment, whatever. We've already started, we've probably already got 3 or 4 quotes that she and I had started. We can get some others, had a couple recommendations from the mayor that we can also check out. So if any of you have suggestions, you'll just give them this right. We'll go from there and check them out as well.
Council, Jonathan has responded, and he said the 2nd is just fine for
It
public
works for
works.
utility,
Yes.
public works. Okay, good, perfect. Thank you, Jonathan.
You know,
Glad it's there, yeah.
I think doing a committee would be,
Oh, yeah.
would be good. For such a big event for us, and one person's doing it, you know, this way here, with the committee, you know, we can kind of delegate it,
Could do it upright.
have people.
We'll just have to do a public announcement, and let people know when we're having it. That way more than one of us can be on it. We'll just have to do a public acknowledgement. So we're in the sunshine. Okay. At this time we've reached the second opportunity for the public to participate if they have something to add at this time. Do you have something that is not on the agenda that you would like to address? This is your opportunity.
Anyone on the GoToMeeting like to speak up now.
Okay, and we will move again to any last minute announcements that may have come up. Anybody have last minute announcements?
I forgot something.
No, that's why it's here.
One of the most important things that we did, it's only Tuesday, and we spent hours on this, and it just was, sorry. We kicked off our utility master plan meeting yesterday, which is so exciting.
Yeah.
So, I think in 6 months, you're gonna see something very cool come out of all these models, but, Wright Pierce is great, and they got a team put on this that is just really gonna do well with us, so, again, we're looking at 6 months there right now, data collecting. Yeah, we've had GIS done in the last couple of years that we're gonna be incorporated, we've had studies done that's been shelved, that's gonna make a big difference here. We're coordinating with Passrow out at the airport because their well is gonna be part of our model, so there's gonna be a partnership. Because if you remember, you approved them too.
Right.
So we're kind of pulling all that together. We're putting priority on some East Williston projects, which I think is great. We're identifying some grants, some revenues, so that's gonna help us offset as we get these rate studies coming in. So this is gonna be an exciting year, getting ready to see actual things happen out there. So if you have followed any kind of road project with DOT, you always know that there's design, engineering, permitting, and that takes some time. You've watched how long John Henry Park's taken.
Oh, yeah.
So we have a lot of work to do to get ready to actually start breaking ground, but it's in our radar now that that's really gonna start happening, and it's very exciting times for Williston. So I think you got a good team on this, and we'll be giving you updates as we go. So sorry I missed that first time. That's wonderful.
Anybody else? Entertain a motion, oops, sorry,
Well,
sorry.
on the question of East Wilson project, are you looking at Cornelius Williams Park in terms of lighting it needs?
Well, that's
That's not part of the utility,
That's part of our planning initiative right now, to look at our parks and purpose our parks. For example, John Henry, once we get all the basin taken care of so it doesn't flood anymore, then we're gonna be working with our Parks Division and our Planning Department. We're gonna come together and we're gonna design a park, splash park, and get grants for it and come back to council. So that's gonna be repurposed, John Henry. Epperson, we need to be looking at that. That has a lot of need. We're working on ownerships right now in certain areas of that park. Cornelius Williams, exciting times for it, finding, we have a master plan, I think, that the group's been working on, for everything that they'd like to see out there, so we'll start looking for grants to make that happen. So when we're talking about this utility master plan, this is mainly for our water, sewer, street, stormwater. So naturally, you don't wanna go out and do a road project unless you know everything underground's healthy. And that's the whole idea of this, is it starts spitting out by priority. When you look at every road, it's gonna tell you the condition of all the utilities, it's gonna tell you the condition, all the variables involved in that, and then it's gonna be spitting it out by the most need. East Williston, we know that there's areas of flood, we know that, because it's in our stormwater plan, that's gonna have some priority put on it through the Cdbg project, so we've already started that in a bit. But when we're talking about East Williston, we're talking about getting utilities extended, getting septic, to sewer. That's huge here, is getting our septic tanks done.
Okay, in our budget hearings, we've talked about the septic out there, we've talked about extending natural gas. In these meetings, we've talked about the lighting. We
Right.
did again tonight. So those are the kinds of things, that we're looking at.
And that's not just all the area of need, it's just, we know that there is a large area of need right there that we'd like to start concentrating on first, but, we'll be all over the place with it, and you'll be seeing some good improvements. Because we have money coming from Rescue Act, we have SRF funds that we can look at, we got Cdbg money out there, the government's throwing money out for infrastructure right now, so we're trying to capture that and take advantage of it the best we can, and grow our gas utility.
And I've got people that want broadband, like yesterday.
Right, so that's another initiative we have going, we gotta get everybody in here well, so we have a lot going on here for such a small staff, we're scrambling, for sure.
Is there a parks master plan, or just taking one?
Well, Cornelius Williams, Mr. Fuller can speak to it, but we've had the group working on Cornelius Williams' needs, like fencing, landscaping,
Parking.
parking.
Exactly.
So once that design's done, we'll get it more, drawn and to spec a little bit, so that we can bid out certain things or get grants for, and we'll phase that project too. So all of our parks are being looked at, all of our infrastructure is getting looked at. We have a grand initiative happening right now in our town, a lot going on.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned the fencing. So there's some fencing out there for Cornelius Williams Park. Has that fencing been put up? Has it been donated?
There's been donated from SPAR. SPAR has donated,
I
yes.
don't know who donated. I have not been saying there's some fencing that's been donated and everything.
Yes,
There.
there's been some donations, that's right.
Donated for months.
Mhm.
It's probably something first somebody taking care of.
We're not there yet. We just know of bits and pieces that's been happening with the Friends, out there that's been doing some work. So we need to, some of these projects have been on hold because of, some of these projects, we had with staff being in and out, we're having a hard time, like herding cats, getting everybody around the
Yeah,
table.
I know the first thing they were trying to do was do the master plan, so we know what
Right.
we needed. And I didn't have any clue they'd gone out and gotten 15 donated, had no idea.
Yeah,
Somebody told me.
Dennis Davis was very instrumental in that.
Oh.
So, we'll get that back together. You'll be seeing a plan. Once it's all, everybody's fussed with it, we'll get it, on a survey and get it staged out. We'll start looking for money and get it done.
Cool. All right. If there's nothing else, I am ready for a motion for adjournment. I have a motion and a second for adjournment. All in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. We will adjourn at 7:30. Thank you very much.